Hello folks, it is time for some more 40k rantage. I've done a bit of working on my audio settings, so hopefully things should sound a lot calmer. With this video setup as well, I'm used to having to shout to get my voice to register on the microphone, or at least talk louder. I've noticed from a few students though, they're like, wow, you're really loud, and I've had to turn things down. You guys are too good to me on YouTube. Like you just get on with it and you just watch my videos and you enjoy it, which is great. But if you don't like something, say it. Or if something's a bit off, say it and I can fix it. A few of you did so thank you very much for doing so. So it meant that I could actually, lower down my voice, lower down some settings, tweak things a bit, and make sure that things sound much nicer for you. Especially if you're in the Northern Sleep Club. If you are, then thank you very much for being here. I wish you pleasant dreams. Thursday's video will be right up your alley because I'm going to be discussing what 40k army you should choose depending on the kind of person you are. So, from a lore standpoint too, not even from a rule standpoint, from a lore standpoint and what you might enjoy. So, look forward to that on Thursday. It's going to be a long one, that's what she said. But for today, let's get into our 40k rantage. And I am quite excited for this one because this is the year where I'm going to get a few more Primaris Space Marine bits to finish off the Emperor's Wolves. And it got me thinking, when we did our podcast, Grim Dark Therapy podcast with What the 40k and Outer Circle the other day, and we were talking about Primaris sculpts and what kind of an impact they've had on the hobby going forwards. And I got to thinking, I made a few notes during that podcast, and then later on I came back and I sat down and I wrote a full script, and then I threw it out, because it was just a bit too long-winded. But I have 5 good points and 5 bad points, and the main marker of this video is that Primaris-sized models can be a blessing and a curse. That does not mean at all that I'm going to be talking only about Primaris Space Marines, so Xenos players, you can stick around too. We're going to be discussing your models as well, because as we can see on Games Workshop on their website, there are different armies that are having Primaris-sized models now. One key one being, what I'm going to be collecting this year, oh yes, I definitely am, this is the Eldari and their Kill Team box, which is the Blades of Cain, my favourite Aspect Warrior group, being the Striking Scorpions. Now, I have a few things to say on this one. Before we go anywhere, I'd like Games Workshop to stop this practice, okay? This isn't a huge criticism, it's just something that is a preference of mine, maybe is of yours too. By the way, if you hear a beeping going off, and I lose my track of thought, I'm wearing what's it called? A blood pressure monitor for 24 hours. Doctor's orders, because they're trying to get me a blood pressure medication, or trying to figure out what's going on with my blood pressure, because it's always high, so there you go. So, this is just something that is a preference of mine. I would like them to stop doing these Kill Team boxes on their own. Now, I know that sounds horrible, like why would you do that? No. Do your Kill Team boxes, but also put these models in 40k boxes too. I've had multiple people going into my local store querying, hey, these Aspect Warriors, can I play them in 40k? And the staff there are always answering the same question. Yes, you can. They're in the codex, they're in the rules, you can use Striking Scorpions, no problem. But it's just annoying. Do you know what I mean? Like, put these in a normal 40k box. You guys know what I mean. This is not a normal 40k box, this is a Kill Team box. Kill Team is not Warhammer 40,000. It's not the base game, right? In fact, there are a lot of Kill Team box sets that actually have their own rules completely. If we go into the Armies of the Imperium, I think just go into Kill Team. Let's go into Kill Team. Some of these look amazing, by the way. These Kill Teams look amazing. So let's have a look at, say, yeah, this is a good one. So a friend of mine who collects Legions, who collects, Chaos, he told me this box set isn't actually legal in 40k. If you go to a tournament with this box set, you would have to proxy a lot of things. Because Legionaries act very similarly to Space Marines, right? It's bolt guns and 2 heavy weapons, and that's about it, right? And your commander, your sergeant, can have like a relic weapon or something, like a power sword or something, right? This is a very ad hoc legionary unit where they've got different claws, different swords, different pistols, different heavy armors, different heavy weapons, and it's not 40k legal, is what he told me. So if it is, don't shoot the messenger. But I think that's pretty silly, because now we're getting new legionaries, really cool models, but you have to be very careful about what you're getting and what you're putting in your army, because Games Workshop are making this hobby far more in the tournament direction. And if you go to a tournament with a set like this, and you try and play them as a normal Chaos Space Marine squad, you will probably be at the behest of your opponent, whether you're allowed to play with them or not, considering it isn't WYSIWYG, or at least I don't think it is. I've been told it's not. So yeah, don't shoot the messenger if I'm wrong, but there we go. This is something that I want to clear up there. I would rather Games Workshop didn't do that and had these boxes on their own. Okay, cool. Back to the argument. So, there are certain good parts, absolutely good parts, to your Primaris Space Marine sized models. Let's just go on to Space Marines, shall we? Let's go on to Ultramarines, because they're the poster boys, and that's what we're here for. Alright, cool. So, Combat Patrol Space Marines. Let's have a look at these Space Marines for my first few points. The first one is, they are better quality models, by and large. Now, in terms of better quality models, I mean in terms of detail, sculpting, even more robust. So, if you glue these guys together, they snap together quite easily. They're very easy to build. If they drop, I've not seen one of these models smash once when it's been hitting the floor, especially if it's been glued with super glue or poly cement. It generally stays together, unlike the old models, which would snap apart at a moment's notice at the most impromptu times. But there we are. And by the way, £100 for this box set is not worth it, but moving on. But in terms of quality of model and quality of material, this is a better set of models in the Primaris upgrade. And again, this is the same across the board. So when we go to things like, say, the Eldar, or the Eldari, as we have to call them these days, we have, let me go on to Xenos armies and Eldari. When we go on to these guys, these will also be of a similar quality, and they are of a similar quality, right? These are highly high upmarket models. These are not models that you will find in other games. That Games Workshop are very good at producing their models, as they should be. It is their mission statement, as I've been over ad nauseum time and time again. Games Workshop's official mission statement is, we want to make the best wargaming models in the world, and we want to continue doing this forever. That is their business statement. That is their mission statement that every business needs, right? Second part of the good part of Primaris Marines and Primaris size models for all factions is they are more size appropriate. They just generally are, right? They're better to look at, they're more size appropriate, they look better next to each other on the tabletop, and to the point that it's getting a bit weird now, where Games Workshop are kind of going all in on this. I quite like the fact that your Imperial Guard, your Astra Militarum, are actually getting a little bit bigger, right? They're still not as big as Space Marines, nowhere near, but they're not quite matching what we see in other forms of media. So if I take this off for a second, I wonder where we are on the level. Are we next to the Guardsman? No, we're not. But when you see a Space Marine of this size next to an Imperial Guardsman in this video game, Space Marine 2, they tower over them, right? They are very imposing, very large, and that is not the same on the tabletop. It was for a while, with normal Guardsmen being much smaller. Now, they're now Primaris-sized Guardsmen, so again, we're losing some coherency of thought here, but in terms of detail and what these models actually look like, they look pretty darn cool. I like the more detailed textures, I like the more dynamic poses. I think these are better models than your normal Cadian shock troops. Fair enough by me. Number 3, they are, by and large, easier to paint. These are models with big, nice, flat areas. Even more esoteric models, like your Emperor's Children, are much easier to paint when they're larger than when they're smaller. Chaos Space Marines with all those bits of trim, brass trim and things, right? Even the harder models, and Emperor's Children and Chaos Space Marines in general, are on the harder end of the scale. At least for me, they are on the harder end of the scale. You can definitely see a Chaos player by the knobby bleeding fingers that they've got when they've been trying to do those brass trims all night, the drooping of the gate, the sagginess under the eyes. These are guys who do not get much sleep because they're Space Marines. Their Chaos Space Marines do not let them get much sleep. But even their new models are much easier to paint. And again, I've got friends who do Chaos. They've all told me they love the new models. They think they're really, really cool. And if you go on their new kill teams here, which is some of their new models, we can see, by and large, yeah, there is trim there, but there are a lot more nice, wide, flat areas for you to paint over and get some nice details on. Flat areas are easier to paint than raised areas, by and large. You're not edge highlighting as much, you're not putting in as much ink, you're not trying to do more advanced techniques. No, don't need to do any of that. All you need to do is get your nice big flat edge down there and maybe edge highlight it or dry brush it a little bit and you're pretty much there, right? Again, they are still on the harder side of things, don't get me wrong, and £46 for 10 models is ridiculous, but it is where we are in the hobby right now, and I'll get onto that a bit later on. But by and large, they are easier to paint, especially when you go into the Primaris Space Marines. When we're on to Primaris Space Marines, these guys are definitely easier to paint than the old Marines, I know by experience. These guys are actually enjoyable to paint. There's a lot of nice large surface areas that you can work over and things. Give me 1 sec while this machine goes off. Alright, sorry, I just didn't want that beeping on the camera or anything like that. It does make a very large vibrating noise when it fills up. That sounds wrong, but anyway. So yeah, we're looking at a large flat areas. I know this from experience. You know, I paint these models a lot, and I keep coming back to Space Marines for a reason, right? I enjoy painting Primaris Space Marines. I've no shame in that whatsoever. I absolutely love painting Primaris Space Marines. In fact, you know, one of the key parts that I loved at working Games Workshop was being able to sit down, and I had a display in the window of about 50 different chapters, and I painted each and every single one, and they were all the same model. They were all... Have you ever been to Games Workshop where they give you that starter model to play with at the start? So you build it together, you paint it together, and it's a single Space Marine, right? I had 50 of those in the window, all different chapters, all painted to a really high standard that I could manage, and saying, look, I'm not a very good painter, and look what I was able to do, right? Just by watching a few tutorials and talking to my own community in the store, I became a much better painter. And painting Primaris Space Marine models was a key part of the job that I loved, that I absolutely loved, and I still miss, but that's why I spend copious amounts of money to do it in my spare time now. But anyway, they are easier to paint. Number 4, a more impressive to look at on the tabletop sort of thing. So they are much more impressive to look at on the tabletop. So I have a friend called John, and John is a bit of an old greybeard. He won't thank me for saying that, but he is. And he used to collect Blood Angels way back in the day when he was like 16 or 17. He is now 50 or above 50 now. He's in his 50s. Maybe he's a bit older than that when he was collecting them. But anyway, he used to remember them when he was a kid, painting and building them. And he came into Just Play, which is our local hobby store, where we're going to be using for the tournament in June the 21st. There will be an Exile Fest tournament. There will be... Do you know what? Shall I just put on the thing now? Since every single time I plug this, I forget to put it on screen and I get shouted at for it. So where are we? Where are we? Are we here? No. I'll put it on a bit later on. But anyway, he came into the store and he was looking around and you know, thinking, oh, these are pretty cool. And then he saw mine and my friend Matt's game, and we were playing a game of 40k. We were playing one-page rules actually, but it was 40k Grimdark Future one-page rules. Anyway, it was his Adeptus Mechanicus against my Space Marines, and his jaw hit the floor. Like, he was just like, wow, this looks epic. This looks amazing. This looks like a battlefield. These don't look like toys. You know, these don't look like playing pieces. These look like Space Marines. And I can't put it any better than that. That's what he said. They don't look like playing pieces. They look like Space Marines. Those don't look like playing pieces. Those look like Scutari, Adeptus Mechanicus Scutari, that I've heard about in codexes and books for ages. Now I can see them there. Look, this is amazing. This is really cool. And only a couple of weeks ago, he bought his first Combat Patrol and is starting to get himself back into the hobby again. That's the power new models can have on the tabletop. They look better, they look more impressive, and they pull more people in. No matter how much you may like the smaller style of models that have a certain charm to them, and we will get into that a little bit later on, these guys are more impressive to look at to the passerby and to mainly other wargamers too who may have lapsed from the hobby. The final point in terms of good is it loses the 90s lack of detail and features. Now this is a controversial one, which is why there is a counterpoint of it later on. But during the 90s, let's be honest, when we look at the old 90s Space Marines, the old tactical Marines, yes, they do have a certain charm, but when people harp on about how much better they are than the normal Marines these days, I can't help but think that those people are just being contrarians. I honestly can't help but think that, because the new Marines to me have higher detail, the higher fidelity, they have better poses, and they're just better in almost every single way. Right? I don't see, and again, it's personal preference. I know a lot of people say, well, I like the Mark 7 helmet. Okay, all good for you, man. I prefer all my dudes not to look like Darth Vader, but that's you, and that's me. That just, I like to have an individuality sort of a thing. And all my dudes looking like they have Darth Vader masks on isn't really for me. But these dudes are right up my alley. They're absolutely one of my favourite things ever. So, this is what I mean. They don't have that lack of fidelity. They're not blocky. Their poses are more dynamic. You don't have to work to make them look realistic. They already do, right? Old Space Marines, you kind of had to work out, how to make things look a bit better. Even models like Captain Artemis, you guys remember him, the Death Watch guy? He's running forward with a flamer in one hand and a sword in the other. And if you look around the model, there are still really wacky mold lines, or not mold lines, but like mold build-up around his legs, where they didn't quite get the definitions right around his legs. And he still kind of looks pretty goofy, Whereas models these days, especially the faces of Space Marines, look at the faces of the guy like that. Look, see what I mean? Case in point, basically the faces of Space Marines, they have a lot more definition. They just look better to me, right? That is a personal preference, but these are the points I'm trying to make on good and bad points of the hobby and of Primaris Space Marines. So those are my good points of Primaris Space Marines and Primaris-sized models in general, whether it be Xenos, whether it be Astra Militarum, or even Demons. We've seen new Demons coming out too, that are generally much easier to paint and much easier to batch paint and get out there and, be really cool. So let's get on to the bad, shall we? Because I spent about 15 minutes on the good. Let's go over to the bad. So number one, in terms of bad, of why Primaris Space Marine and Primaris size models can be a blessing and a curse, well, the number one curse is there are less models per box most of the time. So in terms of a lot of sets, Games Workshop have been remarkably not generous, but not so terrible in that they've managed to keep a lot of these boxes to have 10 Marines in them. But there have been quite a few boxes out there that have had a lessing of numbers in their box sets. And there is a very good reason why I do not want Primaris Grey Knights. And I've said this before, and this will be the last time I say it in a video, because I wanted to get this on camera for you. I collect Grey Knights, and I love Grey Knights. I will go on record as saying I think this box set right here is the greatest box set Games Workshop have ever made. I'll let that sink in for a minute, right? That's because of the sheer amount of options you get in this set. This may say Grey Knight's Terminator Squad on the front of it, but from this box set you can create 5 Grey Knight Terminators, 5 Grey Knight Paladins, a Grey Knight Librarian, a Brotherhood Champion, a Brotherhood Grandmaster, you can make an Ancient, you can make an Apothecary, all from this one set. That's 7 things from this one set. 6, 7 things, right? From one box that you buy. That is an amazing amount of value. And by the way, people say, yeah, but when you built them, you don't, that's it, they're built, so you lose the value. No, you don't. All of these bits are left over for you to use on other models. I have friends who play Grey Knights, and myself, I play Grey Knights, right? And I've been able to build squads of Grey Knights from bits left over from collecting Grey Knights. Just by the notion of collecting Grey Knights, I'm left with bits that I can then use to build full models, a full squad. My best Paladin squad that I used to have was a 3-man Paladin squad that I scratch built from different parts of Grey Knight Terminator squads that I had left over in my tub from my bits box. And it's such a cool feeling to get freebies. You just get freebies. You know, if you can source, you know, I managed to source multiple paladin squads just by buying single, you know, 2 or 3. How do I put it? 2 or 3 legs and 2 or 3 bodies, and I was done. Right, all of the options and the shoulder pads and the weapons and the heads I already had. You already had all those, right? Look at the amount of heads you get in this box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13. 3, no, hang on, what can I count? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, 13. You get 13 heads in this box. And there are only 5 models to make. Yeah? That's cool. That's pretty awesome. In my opinion, anyway, that's pretty awesome. You get 13 heads, and you can only make 5 models. I mean, what more do you want? Yeah, that means you've got 8 left over to use, as in whatever else you want to do. You got legs there as well, and anyway, you get my point. This is a very good value box with lots of bits left over for you to play with later on. In fact, this is a box that comes from a time when Games Workshop encouraged you to do a lot of converting, a lot of your own models. They would celebrate you for doing your own models. There are entire portions of White Dwarf that were given over to you doing your own models. And by the way, those portions of White Dwarf are still there. They're a much fewer number, but they are still there. And that's what kind of gets to me, because the old model of Games Workshop bringing out new Primaris-sized models strips away this individuality, strips away these options to convert and make things your own, which is kind of what they're doing. But by and large, my main point of this is that when they bring out Primaris Grey Knights, do you think they're going to bring them out on a squad like this, where you can do either Terminators or Paladins in the same box? Of course they're not, right? They're going to bring out 2 boxes. One will have 3 Brotherhood Terminators in it, and one will have 3 Grey Knight Paladins in it. And there'll be very nice sculpts, there'll be very nice models, but you will get almost 50% less models in your box set than you used to have. And by the way, moving on to my next salient point, right? There are fewer opportunities to convert your models, and these are uniform sets of models. When you get those options in your new Grey Knight box set for your new Paladins, you will have a lack of options. You will get to give them swords or halberds, and that's it. Maybe 1 demon hammer, right? But that's it. You can only make standardized choices. You can't actually give your army individuality as a thing. We have that with Space Marines too. When you look at the box set Space Marines up here, let's go to the guys when they're all together. You know, what kind of options do you have in a Space Marine set? I'm telling you now, when you get this Combat Patrol, it isn't really a good value for money, but that's neither here nor there right now. 2, these are the weapons you're using. These are the weapons you are using. You have no options. Right? Are the sprues on here? They are, right? These are the options. You have flamers for your flamer dudes, right? You have bolters and 1 heavy weapon and other bits and bobs for your standardized bits and bobs for your Terminators. And of course your characters, which are also standardized and you don't get any choices, right? So this is what I mean going forwards. This is exactly what I mean. The only choice we have on this sprue here is what kind of a gun to give him, which is a very, very slight difference. And not very much at all. Yeah, we have 2 arms for the same gun, posed very, very similarly, with, you know, 1 or 2, 2 options that you can use for his gun. That's pretty much it. That's all you get, right? That is the individuality that you have right now with Games Workshop products when they spruce them up and make them cool, make them larger. Let's go over to our Xenos friends over on their Kill Team box set. Because again, you can play these in 40k, which is why I'm using them. Where are they? Where are you? There we go. Again, this is what you get in the box. This is it. You get these weapon choices. Again, which is kind of weird for a game like Kill Team, which is all about individuality. This is the box you get. You get sprues in this box. I know because I've got this box. You get sprues in this box to make these models. That's it. You can pose them a little bit differently, maybe, by putting different arms and different dudes. By and large, this is what you're getting. out of your box. Compare that to boxes like this, where you can absolutely individualize your entire choice of what you get in the box. I would love Games Workshop to do Primaris Space Marines and Primaris sized models and keep this individuality, this celebration of converting and making something your own that they used to do. But with Primaris Space Marine models and Primaris sized models, they tend to be moving away from that notion. The third point here is not, they don't have many war gear options, and they're catered to tournament crowd balance. That is the reason why I think these models are like this. They are catered to balanced gameplay and tournaments. I've said before in my arguments about Warhammer 40k is that I believe balance is bad. I don't like game balance. Get it out, please. I don't like it, right? There should definitely be a section of Warhammer 40,000 that is absolutely based entirely on balance and making sure that, you know, everybody there is having a decent chance of winning, and the game is full of gotchas and rules upon rules upon rules upon rules that sometimes contradict each other, but you have two really good tournament players there who know what they're doing, and so it's not that big of an issue. That's fine. I believe that part of the game should exist, but I believe the main meat and potatoes of Warhammer 40k should be about having fun and telling stories on the tabletop with your models. That's what it should be about, right? It should be about going around to your mate's house, and if he collects orcs and you have Space Marines, going over there with your Black Templars and trying to punch them into next Friday. That's the entire point. Everything should blow up, everybody should have fun, and balance kills fun. Everybody in 40k should be equally fucking broken. That is my opinion. Tyranids should be broken as a swarm army. Orc should be broken as a close combat charging army with ridiculous upgrades in terms of morale, right? Space Marines should be a surgical precision army where you're really good at taking and holding objectives and annihilating specific foes. Dude, every single army should be broken in its own way, and then you smash them against each other like the two big children you are. Man-sized children. Oof, ooga booga, right? That's what you should be doing in terms of Warhammer, in my opinion. What Games Workshop is doing with their new box sets is they're moving away from this kind of gameplay. They're moving away from this kind of celebration of individuality, of making models your own and making rules your own, right? Making specific armies that are geared towards certain things. Games Workshop want uniformity. They don't want people converting their models. They don't want people making models their own. Why? Because Games Workshop are focusing on esports. They're focusing on the tournament scene. That is their thing. That's what they want to do. And it's incredibly hard to write a balanced game with a balanced tournament scene when your box sets are box sets like this, which have a load of individuality and weird choices built in for shits and giggles. Just my opinion. But moving on to our final points here. And this is not a controversial one. I think all of you will agree with what I'm saying here. This is a very good excuse to raise prices and pervert current law. We've all seen the controversies, right? But Games Workshop doing this, they now have a very good excuse to, you know, raise the prices of their models. They're raising them all, saying, look, you got more detail, you've got, you know, a better, shall we say, molds, shall we say? Not all the time, but sometimes, right? And these are just new. These are new things that we've done. As such, you owe us more money for these models. Oh, and by the way, we're changing the law of the Primaris Space Marines. We're changing the law of the Eldar and the way the Wraithbone works. Why? Because we have new models now, and the old law doesn't make sense. It gives them a leg up, it gives them excuses, but as long as they keep giving you new things, you won't complain. That's kind of what they're here to do, my guys. That's kind of one of the big bad points of Primaris-sized Space Marines and Primaris-sized models in general, is that it gives Games Workshop an excuse to raise those prices and to pervert the current law. They don't even need big models to do that. When you look at your custodies and things, right? They'll pervert the current law for shits and giggles. But in terms of raising the prices, this is a very good excuse to do that. Even though producing these models, I would say I'm not an expert, right? I've not worked in there, but speaking to people who are experts, Maka being one, right? It wouldn't cost them too much more money to make these models as it would do to make the old models. It's not representative of the price hike they've given anyway. Do you know what I mean? And the last thing I'd like to say is, and this is one for the old heads, the old greybeards out there. I'm going to offer you an olive branch here. The 90s lack of detail and hokiness adds a charm in certain areas for certain models. Now, there are certainly certain models where this doesn't work, i.e. the old skeleton models that look like cheap-ass Halloween decorations. Yeah, those are terrible. There's no excuse for that. That looks silly, right? But there are other models that do have a certain charm. Absolutely. The old biker models, for instance, they look pretty cool. Certain old tanks from the Imperial Guard that don't need to be updated because they look pretty cool as they were. The hokiness of certain models does add a certain charm, and I can't deny that the old school 40k Space Marine, the Mark 5 to Mark 7 armor, is iconic. It is 40k in a nutshell. When you see that, even a silhouette of that, you go, Warhammer. And even somebody who doesn't know Warhammer, if you see a silhouette of an old Space Marine, you go, Warhammer. Everyone knows what that is. Even normies know what that is. My mother knows what that is. Right? And she's the most normie who ever normied. Even she would be like, oh, that's a Warhammer thing, yeah. She wouldn't know it's a Space Marine, but she would know it's Warhammer, right? The old models do have a certain charm that I think is absolutely lost sometimes when we upgrade our models to be nice and new. The Inquisitor Kotias model is one of those. Let's just... I need to just... Come on, dude. I mean, yeah. Well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. He's one of those models, isn't he? Poor guy. What did they do to my boy? Ordo Malleus for the win, by the way. But not this guy. He's wearing power pajamas, is what he's doing. So yeah, sometimes the shall we say, charm is lost of the old models when they start updating them, and sometimes even the quality is lost. The old Kotias model kicked ass. But then we have models like this replacing them. So, what do you guys think? This isn't me saying that Primaris Space Marines are bad or good. It's me saying I think there are good and bad points to them updating these models as we go along in the hobby. It's where we are now, guys. It's never going to change. That's just where we are in 40k. Things will continue to change, and things will continue to morph as Games Workshop sees fit. But I'd like to ask you, do you have any more good or bad points towards Primaris-sized models and the upscaling of models in general in terms of 40k and Games Workshop? If you do, let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be back tomorrow with some more Hobby Nightmares that I'm going to record after lunch, after I've had some lunch. So I love you all a long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Alright, lads and ladies, and those in between, have a good one. Bye now.